Nadeem, thanks very much. Let's talk now to John Ryan. He's a fellow at the LSE. He joins us from London. John Ryan, we've got Donald Tusk saying, look, you can maybe have 12 months. And yet, in the last couple of hours, we've got the French president, Emmanuel Macron, saying, hang on, Donald, you're being premature, you're getting ahead of yourself. So the fissures are even spreading out from that febrile atmosphere inside the House of Commons and the House of Lords, I guess, as well, in London, across the English Channel.
Well, I think there are two different things here. I think the first thing is that Donald Tusk is trying to give a helping hand to the British who are in bad need of it, in saying that, look, constantly asking for extensions is not really on. So let's give you a flexible one-year extension, and if you agree a deal, then we can complete that deal and you can exit the extension and exit the EU. I think the French and the Germans are quite right to be saying, what is the point of this extension? Is this extension just for you to muddle through over the next few months and few weeks in terms of what you want to do and really go around in circles? That's not going to be very helpful. So I think it's down to the British to come up with something that is plausible for going beyond the April deadline.
OK. Can Theresa May sidestep the anger that's still there? I mean, clearly, it's almost the weekend there in the UK, so she is planning on going to the European Council summit on Monday. But en route there, when her backbenchers report back to her, she's got to go via the House of Commons and say, look, guys, I'm going for something that I tried to go for before, didn't work then, but I'm sure it's going to work now.
Well, it's not going to work. I mean, and for Jacob Rees-Mogg, we have to think, well, if they wanted Brexit, they could have voted for her deal. And he's saying that Britain's going to be awkward in the EU. Well, that's what they've been for quite a long time now. So I don't really think these threats by the backbenchers amount to a lot. The DUP leader is unhappy. Again, she could have voted for the deal, but she didn't like the backstop.
Mr. Ryan,
so,
can I just interrupt you for a second there and just push back a little bit against this idea of, you know, British MEPs have been awkward before, particularly people who are aligned with UKIP and or the Conservative Party in London. This is different, though, isn't it? Because Mr. Rees-Mogg is conflating two things. He's saying, if the UK, this is in effect what he's saying, he was doing it this morning on Twitter, if in effect the UK has to stage Euro elections, you will get between 40 and 70 pro-Brexit members of the European Parliament. In terms of legislation, in terms of the EU making money, they can gridlock the whole thing. Point number one. Point number two, there was a by-election in Wales yesterday. UKIP got, I think it was 8 point something %. They're not going into government, but that's a big swing for UKIP in a non-traditionally UKIP area. Yeah,
so there's two things there. The first thing, the election, UKIP did quite well in these European elections in Wales and in parliamentary elections before the referendum process. So they had actually higher figures in those constituencies like Newport before. So they're scraping their way back, and they'll have a problem because Nigel Farage won't be a member of UKIP. He'll be a member of the Brexit Party. So the right could be split between the Brexit Party, UKIP, and the Conservative Party, and I do not see 40, 50, 60 MEPs coming from the UK who are Eurosceptic. Just don't see it. Yeah, I just think that that is really not really realisable. So for number one, that amount of MEPs who are Eurosceptic getting into the European Parliament, it's not going to happen. And the UKIP have done much better before the referendum in these constituencies, and they're struggling their way back. So I think there's a lot of words, but not really substance behind them.
Are you in favour of another vote or not?
I would be in favour of them putting her deal to the country and saying, here's her deal, and if you don't like her deal, remain. I think that would be a good idea. You get Brexit with May's deal, but you can remain if you don't think that's adequate enough.
What would the question be, though, Mr. Ryan? Because the question surely has to be a binary choice, because if it's not exactly the same question that was asked almost 3 years ago, in, out, yes or no, do you like it, do you not like it? If it's not that, you disenfranchised 17.4 million people who wanted Brexit, and equally, you disenfranchised 16.2 million people who wanted to remain. So you've got to ask them the same question. Otherwise, the question becomes a flowchart zeroing in on things like the customs union.
Well, 17.4 million people didn't vote for this type of Brexit. They voted for a lot of different reasons, so we have to be clear about that. I don't think people signed up 17.4 million for Theresa May's deal.
So
and they certainly didn't sign up for what...
Just to stop you for a second again, so you want to kind of patronise them by saying you were ill-informed, you're not clever enough, you weren't educated enough to understand the consequences of voting with your heart as opposed to voting with your head?
Sorry, I'm pushing back against you. I think you've been deliberately provocative and misunderstanding what I'm saying.
Well, I think it's a valid point because those people say we do not want to be disenfranchised because Remainers take a judgment call on us
who
every
are these
time.
People? You keep saying
every time they say you've got to go to another vote.
Who are these people? Where are you getting that information that 17.4 million people are saying this? You're saying these people, the 17.4. Where are you getting that information?
17.4 million people are not saying that, but that's the reporting of how they are being polled and how they would vote today. That's what you implied, though, in your question. Yes.
That's what you implied in your question, though, wasn't it?
Yes,
and so
that's
I don't think that's right. Because you can't justify that question with any data, really, can you?
Well, equally, you can't justify the other side of the argument. Can you justify the other side of the argument with data?
Well, we can justify the other side of the argument is where we are at. We've got Theresa May's deal, we've got no deal, and we've got to remain. That's where we're at 3 years down the line. That's how you justify that. You can't keep saying 17.3 million people say this in a question and not justify that with any data to back it up.
Mr. Ryan, I would enjoy talking to you again, I'm sure, and carrying on this conversation, but believe me, we are genuinely out of satellite time.
Yep, I know. Thank you very much.
OK, good to talk to you. Thank you very much.